Hello everyone, my name is Lovepreet Kaur and I will be starting our presentation on the case Mustafa v. Culligan of Canada Ltd, a significant decision by the Supreme Court of Canada. This case is important because it deals with two major legal issues, negligence and breach of contract. Did Culligan owe a duty of care, and was the harm suffered by Mr. Mustafa something they could have reasonably foreseen? Breach of contract. Could Mr. Mustafa claim damages because Culligan failed to provide safe and consumable water? The key question in this case was whether the physics injury suffered by Mr. Mustafa was something Culligan could have reasonably predicted. If the court found that the harm was foreseeable, Culligan could be held responsible. But if the harm was considered too extreme and unusual, then Culligan would be liable. To understand this better, let's look at the background and facts of this case. Background of this case: Mr. Mustafa and his family were loyal customers to Culligan of Canada Ltd, a company that supplied water bottles. One day, while handling an opened Culligan water bottle at home, Mr. Mustafa noticed something shocking: a dead fly inside the bottle. This discovery had a severe impact on him. He was deeply disturbed, leading to extreme emotional anxiety, distress, and depression. Over time, his reaction became even more serious. He developed an obsession with cleanliness, struggling with sleeping, and was unable to drink water again. Because of this, Mr. Mustafa decided to sue Culligan. He made two legal claims. With that background in mind, my group members will now take you through the legal arguments, court decisions, and the final ruling of this case. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Lovepreet Singh and I am member of Group C. So today I will start the plaintiff's arguments by Mr. Mustafa. Culligan had a duty of care to provide safe and clean drinking water. The presence of dead fly in bottled water was a breach of that duty. This directly caused his severe emotional distress, anxiety, and psychological suffering. Breach of contract claim. Mr. Mustafa had an argument with Culligan for clean and safe drinking water. The contaminated water was a breach of this argument. As a result, he should be compensated for his emotional distress.
Hello, my name is Rapi Singh. I'm from section C. Today I'm representing our assignment. So firstly I'm talking about what is defendant argument. Defendant argument is the reasoning and evidence presented by defendant during a trial to counter the claims made by the plaintiff. So there are some points in the defendant argument. Firstly, no reasonable foreseeability. The defendant argued that an ordinary person would not suffer pecuniary harm from seeing a dead flying in the water. And next point is to remove a claim that emotional distress suffered by Mr. Mustafa was not feasible, meaning Culligan could not be held liable.
Hi there, my name is Akashdeep Singh. I am from the group number C. Today I am going to talk about the claim and the final judgment based on the case that Mr. Mustafa filed against the company Culligan of Canada Ltd, the supplier of bottled water. First of all, the appellant brought a claim for damages arising out of breach of contract. Although he appears not to have pursued it with vigor, this claim was failed with regards to Mr. Mustafa's psychiatric injury. There is no inconsistency in principle or in outcome between negligence law and contract law. Damages arising out of breach of contract are governed by the expectations of the parties at the time the contract was made, as distinguished from the time of tort in the case of tort. It has been finalized that personal injury to Mr. Mustafa was not reasonably foreseeable by the defendant at the time of alleged tort. The same evidence suggests that Mr. Mustafa's damage could not be reasonably supposed to have been within the contemplation of the parties when they entered into the agreement. The final judgment was that the Supreme Court dismissed the appeal, and it was ruling in favor of Culligan. Mr. Mustafa's claim was failed and Culligan did not receive any additional relief, but Mr. Mustafa was required to pay legal cost. That's it.
Hello, my name is Mandeep Singh. I am a member of Group C. Today I am talking about legal impact and precedent. This case is a set of rules. If someone suffers psychological harm, they can only hold the other person responsible if the harm was reasonably predictable. This means that if most people wouldn't expect the situation to cause serious emotional distress, the person who caused it isn't legally responsible. It also means that just because someone is extra sensitive or reacts more strongly than others, that alone isn't enough to win a case. Canadian courts still use this decision to make fair rulings in solving emotional distress. About its conclusion of all theory, this case shows that you can only get compensation if the harm was predictable. Mr. Mustafa was very upset after finding a dead fly in a Culligan's bottled water. But the court decided his reaction was too extreme to hold the company responsible. So his claim was rejected, and this case became an important legal example in Canada. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Mahesh Singh and I am representing hearing summary of Mustafa Culligan of Canada Ltd. Uh, for the plaintiff appellant pay Justice Toronto opening statement, Mr. Mustafa purchased Culligan bottled water regularly. He discovered a dead fly in the sealed water bottle. As a result, he suffered severe emotional uh, distress, including insomnia, anxiety, and depression, more obsessive thoughts about cleanliness. This emotional disaster led to physiotherapeutic injury. The defendant Culligan owned a duty of care to provide clean drinking water. The presence of dead fly was a clear branch of that duty. The court must determine whether Culligan should be held liable for his breach. The court must determine whether Culligan should be held liable for the damages. Defendant opening statement. Culligan's lawyers. The presence of a fly in a water bottle is regrettable but does not amount to serious cause. Uh, the plaintiff reaction was extreme and not foreseeable. A reasonable person would not suffer physical harm for such an event. Legal prince in English law forcibly is required to establish ability. Uh, the court must determine was a Culligan breach foreseeable in leading to physical harm. Does this case meet the regular standard for damage? The defendant argued that the plaintiff disaster is too remote for compensation. Examination of witness plaintiff testimony. Mr. Mustafa described his initial reaction to seeing the dead fly. He was shocked and disgusted. He immediately began to feel sick and anxious. He became best with cleanness and could not drink water afterward. His mental health deteriorated, requiring therapy. He argued that Culligan had failed in its duty to provide safe drinking water. When it's a cross-examination, the defense whether Mr. Mustafa's reaction was reasonable. They asked whether his distress was linked to pre-existing condition. They highlighted that ordinary person would not have predicted such extreme diseases. Expert witnesses testimony, medical professional, a physiotherapist testified that Mr. Mustafa suffered from severe anxiety and depression. The doctor confirmed that his condition once after seeing the dead fly. However, the defense expert countered that his level of distress was unusual. Defendant testimony: Culligan representative. The company acknowledged the presence of the fly. They stated that the quality control measures were in the place to prevent contamination. They argued that the harm suffered was unforeseeable and beyond their responsibility. And the legal argument presented: duty of care. Culligan had a duty to provide uncontaminated water. Breach of duty. The presence of fly in the bottled water was a clear breach. Causation. Mr. Mustafa emotional distress was directly caused by Culligan. Resilience damages. He suffered from several emotional and physiological harm. The breach of contract. Culligan failure to provide safe drinking water violated the expectation of their contract. Defendant legal argument: no reasonable foreseeability. A normal person would not develop severe anxiety from seeing to fly. No breach of contract. The contract did not cover physiological distress, only physical harm. Judicial analysis. The court analyzed key principle to determine whether Mr. Mustafa claim was valid. Nicholas analysis: did Culligan owe a duty of care? Yes. Did Culligan breach that duty? Yes. Did the breach cause harm? Yes. Was the harm reasonably foreseeable? No. The harm was not reasonably foreseeable. The foreseeability test is controlled to Nicholas complaints. The court ruled that physiological harm from seeing a fly was not foreseeable. Contract law analysis: the court applied the rule from Headley v. Bexnard. Damages in contract law must be within the expectation of both the parties at the time of arguments. The court found that Mr. Mustafa's physiological injury was not within those questions. Final ruling: appeal dismissed. Mr. Mustafa did not meet the legal standard for damages. Crossed appeal dismissed. Culligan defense was upheld. Legal cost: Mr. Mustafa was ordered to pay legal fees. Key takeaway from the case: enforceability is crucial in intelligent law. Reliability only applies if harm is predictable. Physiological harm is harder to provide in court unless it is clearly foreseeable. Contract claims must be based on